everyone. I'm Christine Cookitch, and along with Shannon Howard, we're talking about campaigns in a post-sales world where it's not the same as demand gen or product marketing. It's a little bit more nuanced. So let's start by mixing our summertime screwdriver. My dad's favorite mixed drink was a screwdriver, so of course I had to amp it up just a little bit for the 21st century. If you're following along, here are the ingredients. We have 1.5 ounces of vodka. This happens to be Portland vodka because I'm local as much as I can be. We've got some lemon juice, organic, locally sourced. I am using 1/2 ounce of Aperol to make it the sunsetty, sunrisey kind of coloring. And then we have some orange juice in the classic style of a screwdriver. And then I am leveraging some hop water as sparkling water, but this is blood orange because I like that taste a little bit better. If you wanted to, you could certainly substitute the orange juice with blood orange juice if you can find some locally. We just didn't have any at the store when I was there. So I went this route instead. And then we've got orange and cherries for the garnish. And of course, we're going to put all of that in here. So there's the vodka and the lemon juice and the Aperol and the orange juice, all in the shaker, and shake, shake, shake. My husband says 20 shakes is the right amount of shakes based on where we go and what we see. So here we go. Let me get it open. And cup. Here we go. Classic highball glass. In it goes. And then I'm going to top it off with the sparkling water. And there we go. A summertime screwdriver. And where's my time at? Oh, it disappeared. You can put a sprig of thyme in as well if you're interested. And let's go ahead now and go back and head up with Shannon and let's talk about campaigns.
It's campaigns, Shannon. We've been dancing around that discussion for quite a while, but because it means madmen for a lot of people, and I don't, for customer marketing in particular, I don't know that that's really what it is. It doesn't,
No.
It's not, it's just not that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with what is a campaign? So when you talk to people about campaigns and you're trying to help them reframe their thinking, how would you describe a campaign?
From my perspective, it's about, again, educating the customer about how we can help them execute whatever this particular strategy happens to be, whether it's new functionality in our product or it's a new workflow for a particular industry. I spent many years in the HR space, and rules change. How you track things changes. And how do we, as a product, help you get through this new change of rules, regulations, reporting structures, basic activities, right? And for me, that's really at the heart of a campaign, is getting that information out so that people can understand, whether that's webinars, documentation, community stuff, right? Again, we have a lot of different ways that we can attack that particular question, and using as many of those as we possibly can for the right things. Again, it's useless to do more than you need to do. And we don't want to waste anybody's time, mine to create, or my team's to create, or somebody else's to review, whatever that means. Customers looking at another email that they got with another newsletter that they're never going to read, or, anything like that. So it's all about balance But the idea is that we're getting that information out so that we can focus on the business of expansion and retention to a certain extent, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've thought about campaigns as it's a structured approach to how you achieve a goal. So when we're talking about a campaign in marketing, there it might be to sell something, it might be a theme that we're trying to introduce to the market. There's different goals for different types of campaigns, and you can run multiple at the same time. But we're thinking about what is the messaging and who's the audience, what is the goal of this campaign, and then what are those channels or those assets that we're using as part of this, right? So that would be kind of your typical marketing campaign. But I think that applies to customer education, customer marketing too, because we're thinking about, whether it's a product adoption campaign or onboarding campaign or retention campaign, expansion campaign. We're thinking, how do we kind of across teams approach this? Well, I would say solving this problem, kind of how do we approach tackling this goal? So I think
Right.
when I was thinking about this, I thought, maybe a good analogy here would be, if you're in a band or an orchestra, you have all these different instruments that are playing a part. They have their part to play. And then you have the overall sheet music, right? You have a conductor kind of saying, okay, come in at this point, come in at this point, and they see what everybody's doing. And I think of that campaign document is the score, right? It says everything that everybody's doing, when they come in, what part they're playing, how it all works together. It's the score for whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? So you have one piece has its own score, but everybody has their own part to play. And I think that's something I really would encourage. I think in customer marketing, customer education, we realize our roles are super, super cross-functional, but it's true in marketing too. Like I wouldn't want to create a marketing campaign that only involves marketing. It's going to involve sales and sales enablement and maybe product and maybe support, maybe account management or customer success. Everybody's going to have a kind of a part to play in that.
Well, and I think that the same is true when we talk about it from the customer marketing perspective, right? We can't really do it without product. It just
Mhm.
doesn't, it's whatever it is that we're trying to do, we can't do it without them. We can't do it without success because a lot of the voice of the customer information that we're going to get is going to come from that team because they're the ones that are in the weeds a lot of the
Mhm.
time with the customers and understand those use cases and business cases the best so that
Mhm.
we can figure out what's going on and where we may need to focus people's attention because we're seeing an uptick from support, right? Where we need to really collaborate with them to better understand where we need to push the right information to the right people because it's not getting through. Whatever the messages that we tried to do the first time didn't make it through. We're still seeing a lot of trouble tickets because of the latest release. This one
Mhm.
thing is it didn't make it. Whatever we did didn't
Mhm.
cut it. We need to go back and figure out how to better message this so that people understand better, so that we're alleviating the need to create a gazillion tickets in 5 days or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the way that we can leverage both customer marketing and customer education in this is as the messenger, right? For
Mhm.
the campaign. It's the way to get the information out there. What's your favorite? I'm just off question. I know I didn't prep this one, but if you were talking about it, what methodology is your favorite way to message? What do you think is most successful? Or well, favorite and most successful do not have to be the same.
When you say methodology, what do you mean to
Like
message?
delivery, as you're building out a campaign, if you were to say, I want the primary messaging to come through this channel,
Oh,
what are you, what's your personal favorite?
uh, I think I'm still an email person. Other channels, sure, but it's just I don't think that email is dead in 2025. What about for you? Are you email as well or?
I'm a tech docs person in my heart of hearts.
Okay.
The first place I go to look for things is to technical documentation. So I'm going to make sure that I'm covered there first, and then I'm going to
Mhm.
go back and supplement it with other things that direct people there.
Mhm.
Uh, the
Okay.
the difference I see now compared to when I started is that tech docs don't have to be just words. They can
Mm,
be
okay.
combinations of things. So it can be words and pictures. It can be words and video,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just screenshots now of whatever page with my favorite blinking arrow. We talked about that last episode, right? The but it could also be a short snippet of a recording of somebody performing the task. Just the
Mm,
5 things you need to do for this one,
yeah,
not even the YouTube has started allowing people to segment, right? So that you can say when people do a search now, they're looking for step number 3 in this 17-step process. And the YouTube video will come up and lock in at step 3 because that's
right
what you searched for, right? Well, yay,
there.
but it still means that I'm going to get the rabbit hole of the other 17 minutes of video
Mm-hmm.
that man, I wish I had not started that.
So I think this is where like thinking about the campaign in advance helps you to create and or repurpose the right things, right? And I have a campaign brief template that I use and that I've shared with people that we should put with this video. But it starts with like, what is our goal? You know, are we launching a new part of the product and we're trying to drive adoption for it? Or is there an underutilized part of the product that we're trying to drive adoption for? Are we trying to introduce people to a part of the product that would be useful for them that they don't currently have access to, but we want to sell them that, you know? And then you're thinking about, okay, what's our goal? Who are we targeting? Not everybody is meant for every message, right? So
Right.
at a previous company, when it was more product led, but I was doing as customer marketing expansion campaigns, I was looking at, well, who are the people who are most likely to need and or use this feature over here, right? And it kind of was, they had to be, if they weren't using this other thing, the likelihood of them finding value in that was not very high, right? So now we're segmenting down to the people that this message matters most to. And then we're thinking about, how do I introduce this to people, right? And so there's education elements of, you know, do I have technical documentation? Do I have a video? How do I introduce people to what this is capable of, how they can use it? Is there kind of a use case thing? What is it? Do I have a case study or customer story? This is where customer marketing can also be helpful, is to figure out, do we have a customer who's doing that we could ask to share something, or do we already have a quote somewhere that we can talk about, you know, this part of the product and kind of introduce people to the value that it can provide, not just from our perspective, but from the customer's perspective. And now we're starting to pull together all of these different resources. And then we can figure out, well, how do we deliver that? Is this in app? Is
Right.
this by email? Is this a webinar? Is this a social campaign? Is it a combination of all these things based on who we're trying to target? But I think sometimes we forget to think about, like, what is the goal? What is the very niche segment audience that we're trying to go after with this campaign? What assets, collateral would be helpful as part of this? And then how do we get this message to the right people at the right time? Sometimes I think we go right to like right message, right people, right time. We don't have all the other stuff prepared.
Well, and I think too, we need to kind of bifurcate that right people, right time thing along the lines too of the practitioners, the people who are really in the weeds with your product, compared
Mhm,
to the champion executive who may need a higher level message.
mhm,
We still need to deliver that message to them because they're still part of this niche audience that we've identified, right?
mhm,
But we also need to make sure that we're high level enough that they understand what's going on without digging in the weeds like we would for
mhm,
practitioners, right? And sometimes I think we forget that we have those two audiences that we need to touch with much of the content, right? Do we do that through cab activity and pushing information through cabs, or is it exclusively in customer stories? Do we do executive roundtables, which are not quite a cab, but almost, right? To get at that upper echelon of people to keep them in the loop because they're the ones that will okay the signing of a check when renewal hits,
mhm. Yeah,
right?
great. That's a great point of a campaign, right? And it's so funny because I am mentoring a student in marketing and I'm talking to her about, like, you might have a campaign, but it's targeting three different audiences of people because you have three different types of buyers. Like, I remember kind of learning when I was learning more about marketing, someone said, like, when you're selling children's toys, like, who do you sell to? And people think, oh, well, like kids. Well, okay, that's a component of it, but parents buy, but you know who else buys? Grandparents buy toys for children, sometimes aunts and uncles, right? So when you think about who's actually buying the toy, totally different. Now I need a toy that on the rack is gonna make a kid go, Mom, Dad, I want that. Like, buy it for me. Like we
Right.
not cause problems, but also like that's the goal is I want something that's compelling to the end user. But then how do I convince the buyer, right? And then thinking through, well, how do they think about things? Are they thinking about, is it sticky? Is it going to get dirty? Is it going to break? Is it like, how big is it? Is it easy to lose? Is my kid going to choke on it? Now I'm thinking about all these things from the buyer's perspective, you know? Um, but I think with campaigns too, or even I think a lot about customer enablement, which is not just how does the customer use this product and be successful, but often those end users are our internal champions. How do I help them go make the case for this thing? Because I don't expect a VP who's not in my product all day to really care about what we're doing on a regular basis, open my emails, whatever. But the person who uses it all the time, like I need to empower them to make the business case, to look really good at work, to talk to their boss about how this would be impactful and beneficial to their company. I need to prepare them with that. And so that might be part of a campaign too, is how do I empower, enable, and equip this user to go talk to their boss, right? And I think about how you did this for SEDMA. You had like a convince your boss template for the
Right.
the conference because
Mhm.
yes, there's a person who's going to attend the conference, and then there's going to talk to your boss about why why your company should foot the bill. And so, how do we give people stuff like that to help them make the case? Because if we do have something like an executive roundtable or an executive cab where we can be influencing at the higher level, awesome. But also, if it's a product led, product, we may not have that. So we might rely on our users to be able to go talk to their boss about, hey, this is what this product is doing for us. Here's the value that I'm getting. If we could add this thing, it would be so helpful to us for these reasons, right? And how do we prepare people with that?
And the flip side is how do we prepare our internals to support this effort as
Mhm.
well, right? So as we're building out what the campaign looks like for our audience, we can't forget that we have that internal audience as well that may be asked questions about whatever communication we send. So that collaboration that we are
Mhm.
constantly weaving throughout everything we talk about is important here as well
Mhm.
because it's not just for our post sales arm, right? It's not just
Mhm.
success and support and anybody else, right? Professional teams, if you've got a services team, they need to understand what you're talking about because they may be there implementing with someone and you release this new toy or whatever. But we also need to focus on the sales arm and the rest of the marketing team
Mhm.
to be able to understand. I like to kind of pair with marketing that's doing what they're doing in go to market and demand gen to figure out what kind of path I can follow so that we are mirroring each other kind of in the types of communication where they can be talking about it for new customers and I can be supplementing that with existing customer activity at the same time. I think that works well in a collaboration environment. Not always, you can't always do it, but it can be
Mhm.
helpful so that you're really attacking a problem from two perspectives, right? The pre and the post.
Mhm.
And so that idea works as well, but it's the collaboration and making sure that everybody's on the same page. Because if you
Mhm.
don't do that, then somebody will get surprised and nobody likes that part of it at all.
No, no, this is
Right?
one of my commitments to customer facing teams is that before a communication goes out to customers about something, right? It's product updates, it's a product release email, or whatever notification about something, they will get a copy because I've learned over time customers go obviously to the person that they interact with and they're like, hey, can you tell me about this thing? And if we have not told them, they're like, what email? What did it say? Like, and they feel,
Right.
just don't want to put someone in a position where they
Or I have to
feel
say, I
confident.
have to go figure that out. I'll be right back.
Yeah, you want them to feel like we're all on the same team, same page. That's actually the last part of this campaign template. I have it up here on my screen. is internal enablement and communication. So I have here, is there change management needed? Do we need to train and enable teams on this? Do we need to provide a heads up for visibility, right? So I might forward a copy of the email to support and customer success and say, hey, y'all, tomorrow this email is going out at this time to this audience. You can see a copy of the email below. And that's just like covering the bases. So if they ever need, if someone says, hey, I got this email, can you tell me more about, and they're like, what email? They have a copy of it saved now in their inbox. And then the same thing on change management of like, where do questions go? And I used to do this for course launches when I worked at an online school, is I had all of the popular questions like, what's our refund policy? What's the deadline to enroll? How long is this? What's included in the course? And we used Zendesk. So was it Zendesk? I think so. And you have like macros, canned responses. So we had all of those like filled out. We had canned responses for support, but we had an FAQs doc internally. And then we would tell people, okay, hey, this course launch is coming up. Here's the open date. Here's how much it costs. Here's the enrollment. Here's, what people will get as part of the course. We had this whole like kind of go-to-market brief of the course. We had all of our FAQs prepared, support. At that point, like support was fielding a lot of questions around like course questions. So we tried to give them as much as possible so that they could effectively respond without having to ask my team, like, hey, like, what's the answer to this? Or forwarding, I just wanted to avoid the forwarding or reassigning of tickets all the time. But I think that is often an overlooked part is teams try to do something like you're just doing marketing. No, you're not. Anything that goes to prospects or customers, you need to involve other teams. They need to be aware of what you're doing, how you're doing it, because they're going to be the ones answering the questions. So support, sales, account management, customer success, whoever your customer facing people are, need to know what you're doing so they can answer those questions and they can build on, like we recently released a maturity model. So we're doing an enablement on, how do you use the maturity model? Your customers are filling it out. Like, what does that mean? What do you do with that information? How can you support your customers in being successful, like using the results of this maturity model assessment, right? So there's a purpose for that for marketing, but it's also useful for our account management team to know, how do I support my customers with this? And I don't want to leave them hanging, with something,
right?
Haven't trained and equipped them. Yeah.
And I think that adds up to the last question, is how do we leverage that the concept of a campaign in customer ed? It's exactly what you said. It's no different than pretty much a go-to-market strategy would be for a product, because education is a product. Go watch the video we did last season if you really want to go into the details of that one. But that's the idea, right? Is we're building out the steps around who are we targeting, exactly what does this do, and we do the same things with this that we would do with anything else. We make sure that our internal teams are perfectly available to support the effort that we have, so they know about the course. They may have been involved in building the course. They may have been involved in testing the content in some way, whatever that looks like. But we've certainly involved all of the appropriate teams in that idea. The same for webinars, right? As education takes on community, right? We can leverage the work that they do in community as well. So I think that's our clue there, right? Is just treat it like anything else. The work that we do in education is no different than
Well, I
anything
would
else.
think even about in education, I think there's often a problem to solve, right? And so what is this problem that we're solving? And education is a component, but it's not the only component. So how do we think more? And so instead of creating content, because content alone does not solve problems, people need to find the content. People need to know how to, like, where to find, how to use the content. And so we have to think more holistically about how do we solve this problem. At a previous company we call it a customers for life council, and it was support, product, account management, and customer marketing. And we would sit down and we'd go through NPS survey responses, and we'd go through like different customer feedback, and we'd say, okay, kind of what are the top trends that are impacting our customers right now? what are the problems that we really need to solve? And then how do we, as a cohesive unit, all targeted towards solving our customers' problems, what product updates do we need to make and what can customer marketing do? Customer marketing also owned education. So it's like, what can we do from an education and customer marketing perspective? What can support is often feeding us a lot of, hey, these are the tickets we're getting. This is what customers are dealing with. Same
Right.
with account management, because at that company, support kind of handled more self-serve customers, and then account management more the enterprise customers, right? So they're representing voice of the customer, providing perspective, and then we're saying, okay, well, how is account management talking with their customers? What's appropriate for that one-on-one conversation? What can customer marketing do at scale? We support, how can we prepare them? Maybe it's those macros for Zendesk or whatever. But then is there also education we can do to eliminate the need to reach out to support? What can product commit to building or improving? And then again, we're thinking about, how does account management talk to people, and how can support tell people that that's coming, and how can customer marketing create a campaign around that? So it's all just, we're all working together to solve problems. And we're sitting down and thinking, like, how do we collectively as a group solve this problem, hit this goal, and taking time to plan it out, which doesn't have to take a long time. But I just think we don't
Right.
ever want to be siloed in just education, just customer marketing, just whatever.
So if we read all together, the three most important things, then define your campaign
Mm-hmm.
with all of the nitty gritty goals, details, audience, yada, yada, right? Everything that we're going to attach Shannon's template to this so that you guys can grab it from down below in the YouTube. And of course, as we publish out to LinkedIn and everywhere else, we'll link it out as well. So that's number one, is make your plan so that you
Mm-hmm.
can execute to the plan. Collaborate, build whatever your collaboration council looks like. Watch for the white paper I'm doing. It'll release soon, I hope. And that in and of itself will make sure that your internal teams are as aware of the plans and what the execution of those plans is going to look like. And then the third one would be just execute it, right? Do what you say you're
Mm-hmm.
going to do, right?
Mm-hmm. But once you have a plan, it's so much easier to execute. Kind of going back to that score analogy, it is so difficult, right? Anybody who's done improvisational music knows how difficult it can be to jam with other people. Like, it really takes a lot of focus and attention. So it's not to say you can't do that, but it is so much easier to align and then be like, go team, go. And everybody's off executing their part. But now you know how it all works together, instead of like, hey, well, I made a video, like, would that be helpful? We've actually decided as a team, okay, this would be helpful, this would be helpful, this would be helpful. Did you get that done? Did you get that done? Did you get that done? And we can all kind of bring efforts together instead of piecemeal doing things, which usually just doesn't work out. It's just not terribly effective.
Well, and it's harder to get to the end goal when you're putting out basically fires with every moment rather than executing to a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Campaigns are useful on the post-sales side of the equation. We just need to structure them a little bit differently than we would if it was in the demand gen or the sales arm
Mm-hmm.
as we focus. Customer marketing and customer education, again, help us build a lot of the content and the processes, if I can say the word today, that we want to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coolio. Then that's it for campaigns, and we will see you again next time. Yeah.